Podcast 9, Conscious Parenting. Hi, I'm Gloria Lybecker, founder of Healing You Sanctuary. Today I want to explore the concept of conscious parenting with you. I'll do it through telling a story. One day, as I was walking down the store aisle to stand in line at the pharmacy, I felt my ears prick when I heard a young child crying loudly. Looking about alertly to see whether I could be of assistance, I stepped into the center aisle and saw a little girl of about 2 or 3 years of age crying. A man, I imagine it was her father, took a hold of her arm, leaned over her small form, and demanded in a very firm voice, "Be quiet. Stop it right now." Shrinking back, the little girl naturally continued to cry loudly as her mother turned away from her and began to push the grocery cart, which held an even younger girl, down the aisle. The father pulled on the child's arm, nearly jerking her off of her feet, as he spanked her with his other hand, again commanding, "Be quiet and stop crying right now." This time, the little girl cried out a wobbly little "okay" and gave a valiant attempt to calm herself as he released her and walked on ahead. The child blindly trailed after her family. Feeling stunned, I turned to stand back in the pharmacy line. A sense of nausea was heavy within me, having witnessed these young parents' misplaced responses that shriveled the young child's spirit. When our children are just being themselves, they are unconcerned with the things we parents can so often obsess over, such as how things might look to other people. Children, especially young children, tend to plunge head first into the experience of life, willing to risk it all. Deliberately, I took a few deep cleansing breaths and intentionally sent pure love and light to embrace and soothe the young family, especially the father and daughter pair. Sensing someone come to stand in line behind me, I turned and with a bit of amazement saw the same young father standing behind the cart with his younger daughter in it. She was twisting about and crying in distress as she tried again and again to reach the pretty purple basket that was positioned at the furthest end of the cart, well away from her grasp. Smiling, I waved at the little one and noticed she paused to focus on me for a moment before reaching again and again for the basket. Catching her father's eye, I asked, "How old is your daughter?" "1 year," he replied with a look of exasperation. "She sure does like her basket, doesn't she?" I acknowledged. With a bit of a sigh and rolling his eyes, he nodded, "A bit too much at the moment." Turning my head slightly to one side, shifting my body a little sideways, I leaned forward to become smaller as I turned in the direction of the child. Looking into her eyes, I wondered aloud, now how could it be possible to like such a colorful basket too much when you're only 1? How could that be? The little girl returned my warm eye gaze and broke into a beautiful smile. I returned her smile and wiggled my fingers, saying hi, to which she wiggled her chubby little fingers back. How precious it was, this sweet moment of warm, accepting connection. I noticed the father's shoulders relax, and then he pushed the cart so his child was nearer to me. I spontaneously began playing a little game of peekaboo with her as we passed the time standing in line. Before I moved on to engage the pharmacist, I met the father's eye gaze for a moment before expressing with heartfelt sincerity, "What precious children you have." He nodded thoughtfully before turning to gaze at his little one. Many people don't slow down long enough to consider how the way they show up in relationship affects the children around them. Despite our best intentions, we can enslave our children to the emotional legacy we received from our own parents, binding them to the incapacitating inheritance of our ancestors. Does your approach include listening to your child's spirit? Would you be willing to change the way you interact with your child if it became clear that what you're doing isn't life-serving? Children pay a heavy price when we lack consciousness, yet none of us like to think of ourselves as unconscious. If anyone dares to say a word about our parenting style, most of us are instantly triggered. When we begin to develop awareness, however, we can redesign the dynamic we share with our children and loved ones. If you're interested in exploring more about conscious parenting and relationships, check out my website at www.healingyousanctuary.com and find a group to join where we will intentionally begin raising our awareness of our self-images, specifically in our relationships with our children and partners.